Right, everybody, I'm back doing episode 2 review with full spoilers of Moon Knight and that, because it could have been one of them where it might not be masculine, but no, spoilers, there is masculine action, as I said, but yeah, so anyway, it starts off then doing a recap from last week and that, and shows you where he beat up, which I thought was a werewolf sort of thing, but turns out it's a jackal. So yeah, you see the bit where Moon Knight beats up the jackal and totally trashes the toilet sort of sinks and that. So it starts off where you see the sand around his bed and you hearing the noise of the jackal getting its ass kicked and that, and then it pans up to Stephen, who wakes up in from a nasty dream, starts to run out of bed and that, but the um, sort of dog lead that is tied to his leg pulls him and slams him on the floor and that. Well, then he sort of goes to the mirror and he's sort of asking to talk to Mark, but Mark's not answering, not there and that. So he goes to his works and that, where he sees his security guard mate, who's like cornering off the toilets and that, saying, "Oh yeah, it's a wreck in there. It's all smashed up." And so Stephen, he like tells the security guard, who's called JB, and it's played by Alexander Cobb. Or it looked like Cobb, but yeah. So he tells him like, "Oh yeah, get get ready to like see some crazy stuff and that. It's gonna blow your mind." So he's like, "All right then, yeah. Well, let's say this." So you have a look at the um, surveillance tape, but when they have a look at it, it just looks like Stephen is just running around by himself, and so the jackal thing um, doesn't show up on camera and that. So he plays the tape and that, and then says, "Oh yeah, let's have a look. What happens?" And then you sees him come out, but as Mark, and security guard thinks, "Oh yeah, it's just Stephen and that," but Stephen can tell it's not, and the security guard has to like tell head office and that, so they drag him in and that, and they think he's gone crazy and that, had some kind of nervous breakdown or something, and like the dude sort of like tells him, "Oh yeah, well, you don't know it, but later on they just said, oh well, if you pay off the damages, we won't um, get the police involved and that." And then they offer him a like leaflet for a psych, psycho um, analyst sort of hospital thing, where he's like, "All right, yeah." So, well, they ask him to give the property back, so he gives back his badge and that, and then he goes talks to the gold dude, and he's apparently called Crawley, and he's played by Sean Scott. And yeah, Stephen like tells him like he's been fired and that, but he can see why. He don't blame him and that, and yeah, he talks to him about finding the phone and key and that, and then he, because the gold statue dude doesn't say it out and that, and so he's like comes to the conclusion that he should find where the key is, and he knows it's for yeah, storage units place. So he goes around looking for all these like storage units and that, and he comes to one where the dude sort of like recognizes him and that, and he's like, oh yeah, yeah, I know you like have a storage locker here. So he takes him to the storage locker where he finds inside there's like a bed and a bag and that, and he looks in the bag to find like a gun, and he's a bit worried and that, he's like, oh no, sort of thing. And then he finds a passport which has got Mark Spector identity on it, and that is American national sort of thing. And then he finds the scarab where the little wings come out of the scarab, and then it starts to like hover, where it's sort of like sort of floats towards an area like a compass sort of thing, like a homing tracking sort of device. That you don't know this, but later on you find it's to find where the Omid, the goddess who the Ethan Hawke, Arthur Harrow's character, wants to resurrect, and that can find where she is, but you know, find this out until a bit later. And then he starts to hear the Mark's voice telling him to like go to sleep and just ignore all this and stop hunting around and that. Well, he's sort of like, Stephen gets a bit panicky in that, and he's like, oh well, I've got an idea to just take all this illegal, he says shit in it, which is like quite sort of thinking for Disney Plus and that, but he says he's going to take it to the cops where hopefully they'll sort of put him in a mental home and drug him up and get Mark's sort of character out of his head. Well, when he goes out of the lockers, he sees like the lights going a bit dim and flashing and that, and then caught to or called to the like 9 foot sort of like Egyptian moon god that resurrected um, Marco and that, walking down the sort of all that, where he starts to like run and that, and then he runs into Corto, and like he stops and that, and Corto turns around and like tells him to put the bag back in that, and Stephen, played by Oscar Isaac, lets out a scream, and I don't know if he did it himself or they got a woman to scream, but he lets out whatever, and then just runs out of the building, where he trips up, falls on the road, where um, pulls up just like in front of the Layla Ecatolia, so played by May Catherine Rinway. But anyway, she's like, "Oh, Mark, well, that's where you are. I've been looking for you," sort of thing. And Stephen, he sort of like gets on the back and that, and he's talking to her, telling her, "Oh yeah, I don't really know what's happening and all this," and she's like, "Oh yeah, just um, be sort of like fucking Mark and that sort of thing," because she thinks he's just messing around and that, and then he says like he don't remember that they're married, because she tells him that they're married, and then they go back to his flat, where he like as Mark tell it to Stephen to get her out and that she's in danger and that. Well, they're like, have a look at some books and that, and she gets like a poet book, and it's like his favourite poet, but it's really hers and that. And then as I look at some archaeological stuff where she's also into it and that, and then she gives him some divorce papers and that, because apparently like Mark's personality wanted a divorce, and Stephen like sort of doesn't want to sort of divorce her, even though he doesn't even know he was really married. But yeah, before he can like sign the papers, right, he starts going into like the stuff that he found in his bag, and she sort of like is sort of like watching and that, and he's gonna show her the stuff when Mark personality tells him, Stephen's personality, to not show her the bag or the scarab, because her life will be in danger in that. Well, anyway, he sort of like stops because he don't want to harm her out, but she just barges him out of the way and just gets in there and starts scrounging around in the bag, and she finds the scarab, and he's like, "Oh, but he don't really want it, Stephen," and that, because he's only just sort of like realised what it is, sort of thing, and that, and so he's like, "Oh, you can keep it," and that. Well, at this, the cops knock on the door, and they show him the badge and that, and they ask the if they can come in because the want to like talk to him, and he thinks they've come about the toilets and that, and when they ask to come in, he's a bit sort of hesitant. Well, anyway, the cop just walks in and that and says, "Oh, thanks," and sort of like invites himself in. Well, the cops look around and that, see like his bed and that, and he says like he's got a sleep disorder and that. That's why he's got like the sort of dog chain to his leg and that. And she sort of like looks out the window and that to see like and checking if there's anyone there. Where and the Layla, she goes up and like hides on the roof and that. Well, the cop, he sort of like looks into the bag because they're claiming he stole the scarab, but he ain't got it because he gave it to that Layla, and he don't know where she is and that, and they don't even know she's there and that. So they get the passport of Mark's passport, which he claims it's not his, and so they're like, "Oh yeah, oh you're a thief," because they're claiming he stole the scarab, and got counterfeit passports and that, which they arrest him. Yeah, they put him in cuffs and put him in the back of the car, and they sort of like scan his sort of details and that. He comes up with Mark Spector's MO sort of thing, where he'd apparently, but I think like you don't know, but I think though he got framed, but the think he just executed some archaeologists and that, and so I think he's a really sort of nasty guy, which he's sort of claims that it's not him and that, and they're like, yeah, sure it ain't and that. Then they like come to this sort of like warehouse sort of industrial site sort of place, where he noticed like they're not taking him to the police station, but then the male copper, he sort of says, well, we didn't say we was going to take it, and you see the tattoo on his arm, showing that he's one of the Arthur Harrow's sort of minions. Then like in the back of they leave and that, and then in the back of the car there's a lass playing football who also has the scales tattoo, who's a Arthur Harrow sort of minion and that. Then Mark sort of personality tries to tell Stephen to let him in control of the body and that, where Stephen is like, no, I saw what you done to them people. I'm never letting you hear me? I'm never letting you in control, you hear me? And then bit of comedy moment where on like the walkie talkie radio, you wear Arthur Harrow, Ethan Hawke's say, I hear you loud and clear, Stephen, from the gift shop, and like sort of lets him out and that takes off the cuffs because he knows about like the Corto um, or quest on being Moon Knight and that being his sort of avatar, and he sort of like so he sees Corto and that. Oh, Corto tells him to rip Arthur Arrow's throat out and that, which Stephen doesn't and that. Yeah, because Stephen doesn't rip his lung up, he gets a bit mad and wind blows out and that, where Stephen gets a bit frightened, but Arthur Arrow's character, he's seen it before and that, and he knows that the Corto can't really do much in the physical way apart from shake things and make things blow and that, and so to go in like the road sort of thing where sees like a dude who's done some tomatoes and that, because it's all like a little community sort of thing he's building, and Corto he sort of like watches them go into the building and that, where he's talking to Arthur and that, and Arthur's sort of like telling him like that he's sort of got tired of Corto and that he and his conscience can help him, you know, work for him, and then Corto gets a bit mad and makes the tray stand sort of thing sort of smash. He claims that Arthur doesn't have a conscience and that, and so they get sort of like the soup where Arthur Harrows claims he's a vegan and that, and so they're having lentil soup, and Stephen gets some soup and that lentils because he's also a vegan and that, even though Marco in and that, but Stephen's pet persona is and that. Well, Corto sort of like tells Stephen that he is justice and that, because the Arthur Arrow's character is sort of saying that the Omid god sort of thing is sort of his worship and that, and when it says justice, yeah, the Arthur Arrow's character says, oh yeah, he's probably saying that he's justice and that, because there's a bit of a conflict on how they deliver justice, because Omid, Arthur Arrow's god, she predicts and can see the future, and so she deals out justice before the crime, where Corto is well, Moon Knight's god. Corto, he's more of punishing people who's committed a crime, So there's a bit of a thing where um, Arthur Arrow's character tries to like tell Stephen's character about it, where then Stephen he sort of like doesn't sort of really sort of care, but then he asked about children, as do you kill children if they'd committed a sin 30 years later in their life, sort of thing, where like um, he's sort of like says yes, sort of thing, and that uh, like wants to know where the scarab is, and that and the reflection of Marco in a steel ball tells him not to tell him about Layla and that, and so then he tells him like, oh, look, I don't want to be a part of your gang, sort of thing, if you're killing kids and that, and like Arthur Arrow's character sort of like tries to explain that if you've got a dead limb, you have to cut it off for the better of good. Well, he he then Stephen asks the people around him if they agree with the same sort of principle of killing kids and that, um, where they obviously do because they're in the gang of Ormid sort of cult, and then because he says no to him, Arthur Arrows gets his staff that's got like a bit of Omid's power in it, where everyone sort of like steps back in that and sort of tries to like talk to him, but well, like Stephen tries to talk to him, but he wants to know where the scarab is. Well, because Stephen refuses to answer, and he don't even know where the scarab is, but he's not gonna tell him who he thinks has got it, because then he knows that the Mark Spencer personality will be really pissed off with him in that, and so he's getting to a point where he's like gonna get sort of like jumped probably, when then all of a sudden, boom, Layla appears with the scarab and that, and the Arthur Arrow's character, he sort of like tells her, oh yeah, just come over here and give it to me and that. Okay, you don't know what you've got, sort of thing there. Well, as she's walking towards Arthur with the scarab, Corto tells Mark, but it's still Stephen there. But anyway, he tells Mark to do something, and that he's like, "Do something, Mark, do something." Well, this is where the like soy sort of action goes down, where they thought, oh, Moon Knight was, because if I thought Moon Knight was going to be all like this, I won't be watching it. But I know, like, this soy bit of action here wouldn't be. They knew they had to do something more, or else it'd be another Batwoman disaster. So anyway, she like tells him to like change into the suit and that, but he don't know how to do it around. Well, she gives him the scarab and that, and then as she's giving him the scarab, the dudes come and grab her in that, and then she pushes the dudes where you could say like, yeah, maybe they were just thinking, oh yeah, I don't. There's a woman and a soy nerd. We don't want to go too hard on them in case we snap them in two. So you could give them that excuse. Well, anyway, she pushes them both to, well, one to the other, and they both hit the floor and that. And she runs off and that. Runs up some stairs where you don't really see them get separated, but they do get separated because it cuts to where Arthur Harrow's characters fucking summoning another sort of demon, jackal thing. Well, then you see Stephen's character run into like a dude, who then he quickly like runs away, and then runs up these stairs where you see fucking Layla's character beat the shell out of a dude, smack him up against a wall, and then throw him off this sort of like ledge where he lands on a sort of platform that then rolls him into a sort of little hut thing, got a little stage that like obviously had like padding underneath. It's a good stunt fall. It's just the way she beats him up. They could have used air doing some mace, mace spray in his eyes, and then when he's all like blinded, then she could like have thrown him off there, which would have seemed more really. But anyway, as I say, I'm not like too bothered about this little stuff because what happens after this, like fucking, is like, whoa, Moon Knight, yeah. Well, anyway, and it comes back to Arthur Harrow's character finishing his ritual of getting the demon, and then you see like the demon's hand pop up out of the ground, where then you see them both run into a room and lock themselves in. Yeah, and she tells like Stephen to like change into the suit and that, but he doesn't like know how to do it. Then he sees Mark in the reflection telling him to let him take over and he'll sort it out, but he doesn't want him to take over. And then you see like the door lock getting him like jolted, and that the doors getting smashed in, where all of a sudden it gets smashed in and you see the jackal sort of werewolf sort of zombie thing smash through and that, but Layla, she can't see it and that. Well, it like smashes Stephen through the window out onto the ledge where he's like starts to like fall down like 100-foot drop or whatever, where Kurt to tell Stephen to like summon the suit, where he summons the suit, but it's not exactly the Moon Knight suit, but he has a like discussion with Mark because Mark's like, "Oh, what's this? This in the suit." Well, anyway, um, Marco, Mark asks Stephen where the oh, beetle flying thing is, the scarab, where he has a look, but he pulls out the sort of batons, which don't get used, spoilers, in this episode, but they probably will do, and that. And, like, spoilers and all, he loses the scarab and all, and I think it's round this part where what happens round here is where he sort of like loses it. Well, anyway, whilst he's checking out his batons, the jackal comes down and like attacks him and that. Well, Layla, she's sort of like got out by now, and she's looking around, and then she sees um, Stephen Moon Knight getting slung through the sort of door things in that way. He goes smashing onto the floor near a car, where then he grabs the car bumper and like crushes it, and then like rips it off, and he's admiring his strength when all of a sudden, yeah, he gets slammed and that right onto a car and that, where Layla's character can't see the jackal, so she thinks he's getting thrown around and that she don't know what's happening. So she goes, but he tells her to get away, but the jackal just sort of like throws air and then grabs him and like starts pushing him up against the car and that. But Layla grabs a bottle off the floor and then like throws it, and it hits the jackal in its head and that, where she like now knows that there's something there, but she ain't exactly sure what. But the jackal just sort of like smacks them both and that, and then she gets a bottle and that was smashed, and then like throws it at the jackal, which it stabs it, but then the jackal just smacks her in her head and she's out, sort of thing. She's on the floor. Now, if she'd have beat the shit out of the jackal and Moon Knight would have been like curled up in a ball, then it'd have been like, oh no, sorry. But no, this is where fucking it was like, oh yeah, it's going to be masculine action. Don't think just a little bit of soy bit, that is all going to be soy. So Stephen Moon Knight, the Sawyer Moon Knight album, grabs a tire metal rim and starts to like smack the back of the jackal because he's picked up Layla and that, probably going to power drive her. But then the jackal gets the rim off Stephen Moon Knight and smacks him in the head, where like he falls down, and then like Mark so like just says let him take over and that, you can't handle it, it's too much for you and that. Well, anyway, Stephen, he's like, no, I can handle it. I think I'll give it another go, sort of thing. So anyway, he's like, come on then. Now, this is where it's like even masculine action for the soy-nerd fucking Moon Knight. So it's like masculine action here. This is where, after that soy bit of action, if they hadn't have had this bit here, then it'd have been like, oh, but this bit is like, Moon Knight, yeah. Give me more. Because he sort of hits the Jackal right in the jaw with a sweet punch and that, where I put like a whack sort of thing there, to illustrate it. It didn't do that in the series, but I just did that because it. But anyway, he like knocks the Jackal out. That he starts to celebrate and that. Well, whilst he's celebrating, the Jackal gets up and just boots him in his stomach. That he just flies right over onto the road and gets up in that. But the Jackal sort of like slamming his head off the bus window. Bit of a comedy moment and that. Because the fight scene with Stephen as Moon Knight is a bit of a comedy sort of fighting bit. Well, Stephen Moon Knight grabs the Jackal and like slams him onto an oncoming car and that, where it proper like smashes up the car and that, and the Jackal goes flying off into the pavement and Moon Knight goes flying back sort of thing. Well, he gets up and he can see the Jackal is getting up and that, and there's a bit of a crowd gathering, and he sort of like sees Mark in the reflection and that. Mark sort of like telling him, "Oh yeah, you can't handle it, but it was a good punch you did on the Jackal, but you need to let me sort of take over now." Well, anyway, Stephen agrees in that, and then so Marco sort of tears into like Moon Knight, where Layla sort of like sees him and that, and she sort of like sees him coming up with his fucking moon like skewers, what he uses as skewers sort of thing. Well, she tells him to get the Jackal away from the people, so he starts to leg it up the building and that, climbing up with the probably using them moon things as grappling and that. Well, this is fucking like pretty good action. This is masculine action now sort of thing, where it tears into a bit of a chase and that, and you using some like parkour moves and that, where you jump in big sort of massive gaps in buildings and that, and then he gets to a stage where the Jackal's catching up to him, but there's a ledge bit coming up where when they both jump, he grabs the Jackal, sort of like probably skewers him with his Moon Knight fucking moon meringue things, and then sliding down a rooftop where there's a bit of a steeple sort of thing that's been resurrected for some reason in the middle of like a church, and he like slams him right in the middle of it, hooks him up, skewers the Jackal. Uh, it's like, yeah, there's some masculine action. Soldier, did I? And yeah, the zombie sort of jackal thing sort of disintegrates into sand, so there's no evidence, no clean up in the morning. Then the moon ring thing sort of flies back to Moon Knight's hand, and then he changes back in to Mark this time, and like he realizes that he's lost the scarab, and as I say, it was in between the bit where he'd got smashed out the window to the bit where he got smashed into the car. So somewhere along the line he lost it there, sort of thing. And then you see a dude pick up the scarab, where Layla sees the dude pick it up, and Arthur's character sort of like take it off him, sort of thing, and kill him as he takes it off him. Doing it real nicely though, because Ethan Hawke does play this character where he's quite a nice, pleasant, like charming character, but he's got that sinister side where he's just killing people. Yeah, good villain in that. Well, he sees Layla, sees him, but she burns off. She rather gets out of there, and he's got no special powers apart from that when he touches people, he can kill them, sort of thing. So goes back to Mark, where he's talking to Stephen, because Stephen now is sort of like the reflection and that, and he's finding it hard sort of adjusting to life in the sort of shadows, as it's called. Yeah, then Mark and Stephen have a bit of an argument, sort of thing, because Stephen wants back in his body, but Mark ain't gonna let him back in, and that, and he says like he needs his body to do some stuff and that. Well, he gets into a bit of an argument and that, where Mark just has enough and just starts bolting in the glass mirror, sort of thing, telling Stephen to shut up and that. Then Corto appears and starts like giving Mark some crap about him like messing up and that, and like he promised that Stephen's persona wouldn't jeopardize the like mission and that, and so he's really sort of pissed off with him in that, where he sort of like tells him and all that the Arthur Harrows has the scarab and that, and if he's sort of like doesn't do what he says and like gets the scarab back, that he'll try to recruit Layla, his bed, Mark's wife, well, yeah, the married Mark's wife, to be the Moon Knight, which hopefully they ain't gonna fucking do. Unless it's like, oh yeah, we've had enough of Moon Knight, let's fucking end this season with the female Moon Knight. But yeah, oh yeah, I think it's just like, oh yeah, the threat and that. So that's why he sort of like agrees. Oh yeah, I will sort of like do whatever you sort of like want me to do, sort of thing. And what did you want me to do? And he says, "Oh, we're gonna go and get the scarab and that," and then sort of like transported into Egypt, where like Mark Carrier wakes up sort of like in a room with a bottle of whiskey, I think, and that, or it could be rum, and sort of like looks out and sees the pyramids because they're in Egypt, and so whatever's going down is going down in Egypt, and it ends. So yeah, Moon Knight should have come on, but it didn't. But yeah, there we go. Class. The end, like 10 minutes, was like masculine action. The 2 minutes before that was soy as fuck. Well, about 3 minutes actually. But no, actually about 2 minutes. Because the other minute there was just in the room, sort of like talking. But yeah, Moon Knight, masculine as fuck. On this episode anyway, because like, I was hoping that there'd be more Moon Knight action where it wasn't just seeing the aftermath, and it did show some good masculine action, which I was like well happy with. So yeah, I'll be doing hopefully episode 3 and that. So thanks for watching. Cheers. Bye.